happiness. So after much personal inspiration, prayer, discussion, hammering, reminding, persevering, stressing, fear, terror, worry, and hope, we have a graduate of our homeschool. So I prepared this talk today for you guys, but also for Cailynn, and then we'll address more of her personally later. So many people have wondered over the years and asked us lots of questions and thought that we are totally insane for homeschooling all 10 children. Of course, they weren't all, all 10 at once, but one at a time, but it does seem insane. And so I want to talk a little bit about why we chose to do this and how we chose to do it. So 18 and a half years ago, I held a new baby girl in my arms, and I thought, I have the whole world to teach her. And what do I need to teach her? What a daunting task to think I'm going to raise her and send her out into the world. And so, as I went through this process, I followed the light. I did a lot of soul searching and prayer because I felt like I was walking through the forest, hoping that I would get to the end and it was going to be a nice end. So I'm very happy that I'm standing here today and that our progress, our process has turned out as wonderful as it has. We all want the greatest things for our children. We all want to provide the very best for them. And so in doing this, our family has chosen to do leadership education. And a lot of that is based on the classics. So there are classics in everything from our religion, from mathematics, philosophy, science, art, writing. But knowing that force is not the way to go, I had to learn how to inspire and not control. And so I had to act not just as her mother and teacher, but also as her mentor and inspiration. William Butler Yeats said, "Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire." So how did we choose to light this fire? As a couple, Ben and I sat down years and years ago, and we still do this often because our goals have to get reset and reevaluated. We wrote down what we wanted for our children when they left our home, what we wanted to see, what the end result would look like. And so here are 8 main goals that we want for our children. Number 1 is to gain a testimony of the gospel and to always go to our Heavenly Father when we need something. The second one is to teach motivation and drive, and that's not easy. It feels like you're the one doing the motivating and driving, but I wanted to eventually have them learn to do that themselves. Number 3, to be a statesman. Number 4, to be good citizens of our country. Number 5, to be good parents one day, and friends, and close to their family. Also, number 6, to take initiative. Number 7, to lead in all that they do, to stand out from the crowd. And then number 8, to know to find the answers that you are seeking. We don't have all the answers, and I knew that there would be no way I could teach my children every single thing, because I'm still learning. And I will continue to learn until I pass the veil, and even then I'm sure I'll be learning. But how to find the answers is also a really important thing for the children to know. So Sterling Still, who I recently discovered, he was an apostle, and I really liked his words. And he said, "I would like to say to you that you live in the greatest age that has been ever known in the world. Your forefathers lived on a flat, stationary earth and plowed their ground with a wooden stick. Whereas you live on an earth of power steering and jet propulsion, where all kinds of knowledge explosions are constantly taking place. We need to develop a character and a personality to match the times. You live in the greatest nation that has ever been known since creation. How grateful we ought to be that we did not have in our founding fathers the kind of leadership that Stalin used with blood purges, or Hitler with gas ovens, or Castro and his indignities as the instruments of government. Just think what a different kind of people we might be and what a different nation this would be if we had the leadership of men other than those that God raised up to write our Constitution and to establish this nation upon the Christian principles. You live in a time when the knowledge of medicine gives us strong bodies and clear minds. If you lived in Jerusalem 1900 years ago, the life expectancy was 19 years. So that means a lot of people might have lived to 91, some might have died at birth, but most people only lived till they were 19 years old. But if you've been born in George Washington's day in America, you would have had an expectation of life for 35 years. So I would be dead. But we are so blessed to have so much knowledge and technology and education that we can now live longer lives. So with this knowledge, we wanted to teach our children different ways to motivate themselves so that they could learn and grow on their own. So let me give you the 6 motivating factors that we use. The first one is to motivate people, including ourselves, with ideas. So there are multitudes of ideas in books and minds and in situations. Victor Hugo once said that the most powerful influence in the world is an idea whose time has come. And an idea's time comes when we get a harness on it so that it can be made to do work for us. Where do we get these ideas? I would like to suggest to you that the best ideas you probably ever have in your life are those that you think yourself. And then you work out the details. But we do not need to limit our ideas to our own manufacturing. We have a lot of wonderful sources, for example, the scriptures and classic books. Ernest Henley was a hopeless cripple when he wrote Invictus, and he said, "Out of the night that covers me, black is the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this veil of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." So the other motivating factor, number 2, is that we are highly motivated by people. And we are actually more motivated by people than we are by money, which I thought that was a very interesting statistic. So we work harder for the approval of others than for anything else. So we strive to take inventory of those whom you put on pedestals and be cautious, not to be led astray, don't lean too much into the own flesh. And we are focused in the right direction, we'll be led throughout our lives. Okay, motivation number 3 is the consciousness of great skill has high motivational qualities. So learning to do something better than anybody else gives us high motivational power. So think for a moment about things that you can do and that you're expected to do better than anyone else. Douglas Malloch wrote a poem about this entitled, "Be the Best of Whatever You Are." Here it is. "If you can't be a pine on the top of a hill, be a scrub in the valley, but be the best little scrub by the side of the rill. Be a bush, you can't be a tree. If you can't be a bush, be a bit of the grass. Some highway, the happier mate. If you can be a muskie, then if you can't be a muskie, then just be a bass, but the liveliest bass in the lake. We can't all be captains, there's got to be crew. There is something for all of us here. And there are great things to do, there are small things to do, and the thing you must do is near. If you can't be a highway, then just be a trail. If you can't be a sun, be a star. For success is not measured by how large or how small. Just be the best of whatever you are." So motivational factor number 4 is the awareness of the reward. So what rewards are we striving for? We usually are very motivated by that. What does it look like? Is it retirement? Is it the celestial kingdom? Whatever it is, we're always seeking for that reward, and that will help motivate you to get to the end. Motive number 5 is you must have fun at whatever you do, or it will not succeed to its maximum. Shakespeare said, "No profit comes where there is no pleasure taken." think I just saw a poem, or no, a quote, also by J.M. Barrie, the author of Peter Pan, that said something about if it's work, then nobody wants to do it, or something like that. Okay, number 6 is to have great conviction about something. So let me tell you about a man who has conviction about his work. On May 10, 1940, Winston Churchill was made Prime Minister of England. At that time, the German Air Force was making round-the-clock trips across the Channel, dumping planeload after planeload of bombs on England. And nobody knew whether the British would be able to hang on for another week or month. But everyone knew that if they were going to have any chance to win, they had to have some new leadership in the government because the present leaders had failed. So on May 10, 1940, they dropped the burden of this great groggy empire on the shoulders of this one man and said to him, "Okay, Winston, you go ahead and win the war with your bare hands." He had nothing more to win it with than the others had, except that he had some convictions and some courage inside of him. So he went on the radio and he started to make some of the great motivating speeches. He himself believed in what he was doing. And in one of his speeches, he said, "We shall not flag nor fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight in growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall defend our islands. Whatever the cost may be, we shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills, and we shall never surrender. And if, which I do not for a moment believe, this empire or large part of it were subjugated and starving, then our empires beyond the seas, armed and guarded by the British fleet, will carry on the fight until God's time in the New World and its power might step forth to the rescue and the liberation of the old." Now, that is very motivating. In Mosiah 20:11, it says, "But they fought for their lives, and for their wives, and for their children. Therefore they exerted themselves, and like dragons did they fight." Life is a test, and we are fighting spiritual battles daily. We are learning to conquer the natural man. There will be tests, trials, or battles, and if we fight like dragons, for the things that we have convictions with, we will win with the Lord's help. So in closing, I'd like to share a story from Arabia. A horseman was riding across the desert at night, and as he went through a dried-up riverbed, a voice out of the darkness commanded him to halt and dismount, which he did. Then the voice commanded him to fill his pockets with pebbles at his feet, which he did. And then the voice commanded him to remount, which he did. And as he rode out to the darkness, the voice said to him, "At sunrise you will be both glad and sad." At sunrise he looked in his pockets and found that the pebbles he had picked up were diamonds, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, and pearls. He was very glad and very sad. He was very glad he had taken as many as he did. He was very sad he did not take more. So someday we will all be delighted at the time and effort that we put into our learning. But it is not too late for anyone to make education a lifelong process. And my wish is for you success in the mission you choose for your life.
Alright, so now Cailynn later. She'll first give her talk and then she'll be doing a recitation. I'd like to share 5 things. I'd like to share 4 things that I learned during my homeschool journey. So the first thing I have is wisdom in books. You can't get a cup of tea big enough or a book long enough to suit me. C.S. Lewis. Over the course of my homeschool years, I read a little over 1,000 books. I haven't always liked reading. When I was first pulled out of school, I hated it. And my mom gave me many books to try, and I didn't like them. Christmas came around, and I received a Nancy Drew book set. My mom told me that I'd love them, and so I decided I would read them. Through the mysteries, I began to find my love of reading. Someone asked Wendell Phillips when he was born. He said, "It was one Saturday afternoon when I was 25 years old, just after I finished reading a book. That birth has happened to innumerable occasions in the past, and it will happen to many people in the future. I consider Nancy Drew my beginning, and added to it later Aristotle, Victor Hugo, Homer, Jane Austen, Shakespeare, and many, many more. Classics teach you so much. As you read of people's mistakes and successes, their consequences, it teaches you so you can avoid making the same mistakes. I have learned lifetimes of information in each classic I read. George R. Martin once said, "A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads only lives one." Recently, I began reading Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I have learned some amazing things about motherhood. Here are 2 quotes that illustrate what I have learned. He showed me I must practice all the virtues I would have my little girls possess, for I was their example. When I spoke sharply, they rebuked me more than any words could have done. And the love, respect, and confidence of my children was the sweetest reward I could receive for my efforts to be the woman I would have them taught me. And the second one is, "My Joe, you may say anything to your mother, for it is the greatest happiness and pride to feel that my girls confide in me and know how much I love them." The second one is my mission. When you discover your mission, you will feel its demands. It will fill you with enthusiasm and a burning desire to get to work on it. W. Clement Stone. The education I received was mission-based. When I was young, I loved weather.
We are at the moment. Goal setting should cause us to stretch and make our way. Through the years, Cailynn has really grown through her mother and myself, the goals that we've set for her and with her. And as we've taught her, she's learned to think for herself and especially to set goals for herself. With the instruction that her mother and I have given her, mostly her mom, not me, and her hard work and dedication, she's taken hold of a lot of the concepts that we've taught her through her life, and she's blossomed into an intelligent, beautiful young woman that we have here before us today. Goals can help us to set a proper course in our lives and focus on worthy causes so that we are not carried away about the wind, with every wind of doctrine. Many people struggle with setting goals and managing time effectively. Human beings have a natural instinct within us to be inert and to be inactive. We have a powerful appetite to come to rest. Like a stone on a mountainside, not just, most stones usually roll. We're talking about a stone, you see the big stones just sitting there, don't ever move, right? So we're talking about a stone like that. We have a tendency to remain where we are rather than in doing the things we ought to do or being as active as we ought to be. Giving a push over the cliff, the stone on the mountainside will roll down the hill. But as soon as it wears out momentum, it will come to a stop. And there's a poem here that somebody wrote. And the person that I got it from wasn't sure who wrote it, so I'm going to go ahead and recite it though. It says, "I wish I was a little rock sitting on a hill, doing nothing all day long, except just sitting still. I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't sleep, I wouldn't even wash. I'd sit and sit thousands of years and rest myself, by gosh." So that was kind of cute, I thought, so I went ahead and threw it in there. I know I'm kind of like that, where I'll kind of get stagnating and my better half is over there and gives a little push. So, it's important for us to remember that worthwhile goals and objectives that relate to quality of people, things, and relationship, as well as the numbers and sizes of, a lot of people when they think about goals, they think about, let me quantify what I've done, let's look at all these numbers, when you think about the money market and it's all about numbers. Well, you know, with goals, we've got to think about our life, and we think about the things we want to do for other people, as Christ did. It's important to make the distinction between the potentially confining aspects of setting goals and the much more encompassing need of having a general purpose in life. With goals in hand, it's important to use our time wisely. And the following hymn here states it pretty eloquently here. The name of this hymn is "Improve the Shining Moments." Time flies on wings of lightning. We cannot call it back. It comes, then passes forward along its onward track. And if we're not mindful, the chance will fade away, for life is quickly passing, 'tis as a single day. With all the mentoring and guidance and goal setting that we've given, that she's received, through life, she's going to be expected, or we expect her that she's fully prepared, for her upcoming mission, and also life beyond her current home, and prepared for her family life and her own family. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that she'll be able to do a great job, out in the world on her own. One last thing that I would like to mention to her is, it's the most important thing in your life is to lean on your Heavenly Father. I know it's important to me. Just remember to pray always. Never give up. God will always be there for you, no matter what. Sorry. I'd like to invite my wife up real quick, and we'll go ahead and do a quick little ceremony and give her a certificate. So without further ado, we would like to invite Cailynn up to receive her certificate as a valedictorian.